This is LXBN TV, and I'm Colin O'Keefe. A recent discussion paper released by the Brattle Group projects 59 to 77 gigawatts of coal plants to be retired by 2016. Joining me now from Washington, D.C. to discuss the paper and the potential causes for these closures is Andrew Shaw, attorney with McKenna Long Aldridge and author on their Politics, Law, and Policy blog. Andrew, first off, the study compares two potential threats to the coal industry, the EPA and its regulations, and market factors. Which is more to blame for the potential future retirement of coal plants?
Well, first, thanks, Colin, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you today. Appreciate the opportunity. I know we are in campaign season, and we want quick, clear sound bites, but the answer to your question is it depends. And I think a couple of points are really worth noting. The first is that there's been a significant transition in the power sector from coal usage to natural gas usage in the last several years, due to the development of this tremendous resource that we've discovered in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and other areas. And so natural gas prices have been low with kind of a glut of supply right now, and that has made natural gas very competitive with coal. And just to put this in a little bit of historical context, I worked on Capitol Hill during the debate over the Energy Policy Act of 2005, and that bill included provisions that would expedite the permitting of LNG import facilities, because at the time we were projecting that we would have a significant need for importing natural gas to meet our domestic needs. Now we're at a point where there's nearly 20 LNG applications to export LNG abroad because of the glut and increase in production over here in recent years. And I think one really important thing about the Brattle study is that it projects that because of this increased supply, natural gas prices are going to remain pretty low over the next couple of years. The study estimates that they'll remain in the $4 to $5 range through 2015, 2016. And I think that that's going to keep natural gas very competitive with coal in the power sector. With respect to EPA regulation, I think one thing that the report pointed out that I think is worth noting is that the regulations that have come down the pike have certainly not been as draconian as some might have expected. For instance, the EPA released a proposed rule for greenhouse gas emissions from coal-fired power plants, but to date, that rule will only apply to new power plants and not to old power plants. Certainly, what happens in less than 2 weeks with the presidential election will have a significant impact on regulations going forward. I think that there's concern among some in the power sector that EPA, under a second Obama administration, might move forward with regulations of existing power plants for greenhouse gas emissions under Section 111 of the Clean Air Act.
Interesting. So, well, it is, kind of the market's favorability towards natural gas that is hurting the coal industry the most. Is it possible that regulations on the natural gas industry, particularly in regard to, the ever more popular hydraulic fracturing, is it possible that regulations on those types of practices could potentially level the playing field between coal and natural gas? Or are we going to see these low natural gas prices for, the foreseeable future?
Well, that's a great question, Colin. I think an important thing to note is the fact that over the last several years, there's been significant new regulations promulgated, not necessarily on the federal level, but on the state level. And I'm here in D.C., and there's always a federal focus on regulations, but states like Pennsylvania, with their recent passage of Act 13, Texas, Wyoming, and several other states have enacted pretty significant regulations of hydraulic fracturing and shale gas development. And we haven't seen the type of shift in natural gas prices by these new requirements that would really negate the economic advantage that natural gas has right now over coal prices. That said, regulation doesn't occur in a vacuum. Compliance with regulations and any new rulemaking certainly has a cost. I think with respect to some of the federal regulations that are being considered, the most immediate economic impact will probably be on upstream part of the natural gas industry, and probably more severely felt by smaller independent producers whose ability and capacity to comply with some of these requirements is a little more constrained than some of the major companies like the Big Five, Exxon and Chevron. That said, the cost of new rulemaking could have some impact on downstream users going forward.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to watch, particularly as you mentioned on the state level, to see how things play out in that regard. Once again, that was Andrew Shaw of McKenna Long and Aldridge and their Politics, Law, and Policy blog. For more of his insight, particularly on this discussion paper, be sure to visit politicsandlawblog.com. And for more curated commentary from the Lex Blog Network's thousands of authors, visit us at lxbn.com. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Colin.